The Democratic Women's Club of Florida, and we're proud to have him here. Aaron, he has worked very hard to help us with our sponsorship, and he has been successful, so I thank him very much for those efforts. And Aaron considers himself a fundraiser, and that's what he did for us. He did some fundraising. Plus, he is an activist. And he very much takes care of, if you read his bio, you'll see there's many issues that he works on. And I noticed part of it is that he works with younger people too. So he's really trying to help us with our world in the future. So before any further ado, I'd like to welcome Aaron to speak on the millennial perspective. Thank you, Aaron.
Well, I think I know a lot of you. Probably have been to some of your chapters. Right. So, of course, my name is Aaron, and I'm a member of the Democratic Women's Club of Florida. It's actually, I moved to Florida about a year and a half ago, and it was the first Democratic club that I joined, because Mary Freeman said, you need to get involved with the Democratic Women's Club of Florida. And of course I did, because let's be honest, you can always count on Democratic women to turn out and vote. Yeah. So of course, you know, it's a privilege to be here with all of you today at the Four Points Sheraton in Tallahassee to speak about the importance of staying politically active, aware, engaged, and involved throughout the next 19 months leading up to the presidential election cycle of 2016, where we have a chance to change the legislature here in Tallahassee and go straight blue. Now, I kind of want to do a fun little exercise because I'm just kind of curious about this, to be honest with you. We don't get together as much as we should all around the state. So I'm just kind of curious. Stand up if you're able. How many of you have run for office or held office in this room? Stand up. How many of you are planning on running for office in the future, in 2016 or in the near future? Well, this right here, I want to say something to you, because I had started out kind of saying it, that Democratic women turn out and they always vote. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm not going to say her name, because this isn't about that woman with the pantsuit. But 2016, she gave it away. That's why I pulled my don't ask, don't tell card. So, you know, 2016 is going to be the year of the Democratic woman, whoever she is. From the top of the ticket all the way down. So if you feel, because I look around in this room and I'm hearing the commentary from all of you, and I have to think to myself, we're talking about, well, who's going to run for this city commission seat? Who's going to run for mayor? Who's going to run for county commissioner? Who's going to run for governor? Who's going to run for the state house, the state senate? Who's going to run for this? Who's going to run for that? Look in this room. It's you. Yes. Woo! It is you. You got to step up and run. So, you know, throughout the past year, I have traveled all over the state of Florida, and I've spoken about issues that all too often affect women, children, and middle-class families. In the process of listening, one thing has become very, very clear. For too long, the history of women has been a history of silence, and it still is today. It is time to break the silence, to act on behalf of women and girls everywhere whose experiences go unnoticed and whose voices go unheard. The battle for women's rights is being fought more than ever before, and that is why we are here today. We're here today to tell those who oppose us and what we stand for as Democratic women and Democratic feminists like me. That women's rights are not a luxury. Right. It is not a luxury to be told that you count in life. It is not a luxury to have the same rights as anybody else. It is not a luxury to have the same opportunities as anybody else. It is a human right. Women's rights are human rights once and for all. There are too many injustices and abuses towards women and girls that are unacceptable. And frankly, it's not just in the developing world. It's right here in America and right here in the state of Florida. And so much of it happens right here in Tallahassee. Now, I want to start off today with a quote that may sound familiar to many of you. It is a violation of human rights when the leading cause of death among women ages 14 to 44 is the violence they are subjected to in their own homes by their own relatives. It is a violation of human rights when women and girls are sold into slavery or prostitution, all because of human greed. It is a violation of human rights when babies are suffocated or their spines broken simply because they are born girls. It is a violation of human rights when women are raped in their own communities, and thousands of women are subjected to rape in the name of war and at the hands of their own husbands. It is a violation of human rights when women are beaten, stoned to death, tortured, or killed because their marriage diaries are deemed too small. It is a violation of human rights when young girls are brutalized by the painstaking practice that is female genital mutilation. If there is one message that goes from this conference today, let it be that human rights are women's rights, and human rights are women's rights once and for all. This, of course, was a statement made in a speech by a former First Lady of the United States in 1995 in Beijing, China. See, I'm not name dropping. She likes cancer. China, where the Chinese government has shut off the radios and the televisions of its people because China is not inclusive or supportive of an agenda that is fair to its women and girls. I, of course, am talking about a woman that holds many titles, and now I'm going to say her name. I think it's the only time I'm saying her name today, and that is Hillary Rodham Clinton. Ladies and gentlemen, women's rights, they aren't radical. They are God-given. It's simple. Women's rights are human rights. Now, it feels so good saying that I want this to be active and inclusive. You can say it with me. Say it. Women's rights are human rights. Again. Women's rights are human rights. I want to hear it louder. Women's rights are human rights. Scream it. Women's rights are human rights. This isn't rhetoric. Are you listening? Are they listening over here in the state capitol? This is, yes they will, because this is social intolerance. And we must take action, and the time is now. The time is now more than ever before. Look at what's happening in our legislature just this session, and it's only March. I'm afraid what's going to happen in April and May if it continues this way. It is 2015 and it feels as if the Scott administration and numerous members of the State House and the State Senate and other local offices all across Florida are stuck in the past. The lives of women and girls are meant to be filled with opportunities, the same opportunities as anyone else who may want to make a good life for themselves, their children, their families, while working hard and playing by the rules to move forward the middle class and lift others in their communities out of poverty. That is what we stand for as Democrats, and that is so much of what today is about. Women's rights are not just a women's issue, contrary to belief. Women's rights are a family issue. Women's rights are issues that can and will affect us all. So that is why the world's men and boys, young men, I just turned 24 last week. I know I look like I'm 17 still, but that's why the world's men and boys must stand up and speak out against any legislation that targets women and girls unfairly and dictates and decides the choices and decisions of women and girls throughout the course of their lives. Of course, that's going on right here in the state of Florida. Whether it be equal pay for equal work, paid maternity leave, having access to reproductive health care choices, which include access to abortion, which should always be legal, safe, and very rare. Having access to contraceptives, condoms, sex education, and the morning after pill. There are so many pieces of legislation that often target women, children, and middle-class families, and I'm here today to speak to many of those issues. We are living in a state where both the State House and the State Senate are predominantly controlled by conservatives who, they have ideas, but let's face it, they are bad ideas. Bad ideas for middle-class families and bad ideas for a stagnant economy that seems to have families, single mothers, and children feeling stuck, and as if the economy should only work for the top 1% and the wealthiest of Floridians. That is not inclusiveness, and that is not fair. With an ever-increasing one-sided public-state debt management monetary policy that seems to serve the wealthiest of Floridians and forgets those who live on a minimum wage and live paycheck to paycheck, we see too many who are struggling to make it in this tough economy, having to choose between rent and groceries, utility bills, and healthcare costs, but let's face it, still hoping that they don't get sick because they still can't afford health insurance. Speaking of health insurance, how about a round of applause for the Affordable Care Act?
Woo!
16.4 million Americans enrolled in the Affordable Care Act, and the Republicans had said that it won't get past 4. 16.4, and guess what? We live in Florida. We have more people enrolled in the Affordable Care Act in Florida than any other state. That I don't get, but try to figure that one out. But you know, there are so many young people who are so invested, like myself, into this as well. Young people who can't afford to go to college to pursue their own dreams.
That's right.
And those who wish to have degrees, not debt. Homeowners who are losing their homes due to foreclosures, and homeowners who can't afford the increasing cost of flood insurance premiums. And speaking to flood insurance premiums, we have a representative in the State House. He is my representative, District 66. Lorena Grizzle over here is actually going to be running against me. We're going to make sure we're going to get her elected this time and get an anti-woman man out of the House, because a woman's place is in the State House, the State Senate, and the Governor's Mansion, and in the White House. But speaking to that, Representative Ahern has time and time again been in the pockets of the lobbyists and the special interests in regards to flood insurance premiums. And rather than fighting for the homeowners and those who can't afford the high astronomical cost of flood insurance premiums, he's fighting for the insurance companies. That's why we need Lorena. I know that's why I really want Lorena, for many reasons. Of course, to the seniors and to the veterans who time and time again are having their pensions, Social Security, benefits, and health insurance cut, and budget cuts. So many of those who are serving are fighting for the special interests such as Duke Energy. While our families and our households have to foot the bill with an ever-rising cost we see monthly in our electricity bills. I'm really bad about the air conditioner. Our electricity bill is like $400 something a month, but I keep it at like 68. So my blood hasn't got used to down here. So that's probably a little bit why. But you know, we are stuck in a state with a 20th century infrastructure system that is flawed and leaves out those who have no other means of transportation. People who walk miles upon miles and wait hours upon hours for a bus just to get to and from work, and that's if they're lucky enough to have a job in this economy. Seniors, this is what breaks my heart. Seniors who walk miles upon miles and wait hours and hours just to get their prescription medications to be alive. The single moms who are working 2 to 3 jobs just trying to get by to make a better life for their children, to give them every opportunity to live up to their God-given potential. We have legislators and elected officials who are, again, standing up for the special interests instead of standing up for all of you. Now, one of the first things that I want to talk about today, and I know Diane Guthrie is going to be taking this head on tomorrow, and I'm very excited about this. I moved from liberal New York City, which if you've never had a chance to go to New York, you should. It's great. I decided to move to New York City the night that the verdict on the Trayvon Martin case was announced. And I was really, really sad about that. I couldn't believe that that happened. And I actually was at Stonewall. I was out drinking. And I thought to myself, what am I doing here with all of these other wonderful progressive people, and they think the same way that I'm thinking, and we're just saying, you know what, we're not going to deal with these people in the South, let them kind of succeed and do whatever they want to do their own work easy. Let's just live here in New York. And I thought to myself, a 17-year-old baby died. A 17-year-old child died. What am I doing in this state? So I talked to my partner, and a couple months later, we moved to Florida. Yay! I traveled to Amsterdam last year, where I keynoted an HIV/AIDS conference in November. I received many questions about my own HIV diagnosis at 16 years old, my views on the pharmaceutical companies and the industry, and the astronomical cost of prescription medication and PrEP, my plans for the future, both personally and politically, as well as, and this is what shocked me, because they know that I'm from Florida. I got so many questions from people that English is not their first language, it's either Dutch or French, about a law here in Florida that we hear too much about, and that is stand your ground. A failing, flawed law that is stand your ground. People in Europe, a 13-hour flight from Tampa to Europe, talking to me about how is it that our state legislature can put such a bill into place and protect a bill that creates more harm than it does good, that is full of holes and cracks and hurts minorities, in particular young black men. A bill that hampers law enforcement officials from protecting and serving their communities while making their job that much more difficult, putting themselves in the direct line of fire and harm. Legislators who have legalized the authority of college students obtaining and carrying a firearm on their person while on their college campuses. A legislature that strongly opposes universal background checks on any and all gun sales. A legislature that stands up for rapists and the NRA. But here's a thought. Instead of expecting our daughters to carry guns everywhere, how about we teach our sons not to rape?
Yeah!
Woo! You know, nationally as well as in Florida, data shows that a woman who owns a gun is statistically more likely to have her gun used against her than she is to stop a rapist. Guns work, right? Guns do not always equal safety. Let me repeat that. Guns do not always equal safety. On March 24th, in 2015, just days ago, the Florida State Senate advanced a bill that would allow gun owners to carry concealed weapons when they are evacuating during hurricanes or other emergencies. This bill was introduced last year. When I found out about it, I was just shocked. I thought it was The Onion I was reading, to be honest with you. Well, let me tell you, as someone who lived through Hurricane Sandy in New York City and worked with Chelsea Clinton and the Clinton Foundation during the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy to rebuild Far Rockaway Beach in New York, I can only imagine what the authorization of such a bill with these specific implementations would have done to those who were directly affected by a superstorm or a hurricane in a time of natural disaster. This legislation would give gun owners a 48-hour exemption, an exemption, from needing a license to carry a concealed weapon during an evacuation. Wow. That is unacceptable. Now, what could possibly go wrong? Do you get my sarcasm there? At times, I must shake my head in bewilderment at what the legislature in Tallahassee and, of course, the Scott administration are doing, time and time again, failing our families and Florida's women. Yet the legislature and the special interests, the trial lawyers, many judges, of course the Florida Supreme Court, the lobbyists continue to stand by this because we don't stand up. They continue to stand up for those special interests and against the women and girls of Florida, an underdeveloped and underserved community in the Sunshine State. For example, just this month, a Florida House panel approved a measure that would require, we were talking about it earlier, a 24-hour waiting period after a meeting with a physician and doctor before a woman could terminate a pregnancy in Florida. This bill, of course, was filed by somebody who was a year younger than me.
Oh, God, Jenna.
Crazy.
Yep.
And there's Representative Jennifer Sullivan. I hope to meet her very, very soon.
Yep.
And Representative Mount